This is exactly what the Vikings needed, as Carson Wentz's first media day as a Viking was everything fans could want from a QB2. But first, Kevin O'Connell adds his 2 cents on what it means to have a veteran like Wentz on the team and how it could help JJ McCarthy. We're going to break down all of that in this episode of Vikings Digest. But first, if you're part of the 87.4% of viewers who are not yet subscribed yet and you want to stay up to date on all things Vikings, make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you don't miss any of the updates as they drop. It's going to be a fun season. And with that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is the perfect QB2. So yesterday, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell had their joint press conference along with Carson Wentz, and we're going to dive into the Carson Wentz aspect of those things today. And the first of which we're going to hop into is Kevin O'Connell's side of things. We're talking on Wentz initially and bringing him in. He said played a lot of football, coming up on almost 100 starts. I was in the NFC East early on in his career, where he had some dominant times playing for the Eagles, screwing over the Vikings in the process. I know it wasn't him, it was Nick Foles, but so on. And then as his journey has kind of gone on from there, he's been exposed to some really good systems. He's played for a bevy of teams since being with the Eagles, and he's really smart. The physical presence of a guy that big and strong, and that applies to how he's played and had success in this league. But also there's an above the net quality to him where I think we'll bring him in and try and get as comfortable as we can with him, which is already off to a great start. And he's only been there for a couple of days. He just got in Tuesday or Thursday. So it is a lot for him to take in, especially with a new system, which he did. Carson Wentz himself did say, yeah, it's somewhat familiar, but it's always going to be a new language and new scheme to learn and new plays and things like that. But Kevin O'Connell is fully prepared to making sure that he is able to be fully comfortable within this system so that if he's called upon to step in for JJ McCarthy at any given time, he is going to be ready to go and know this offense almost as good as anybody else, including Kevin O'Connell. And it just goes to show what Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was talking about within regards to the draft class this year, where he's saying meritocracy, bringing guys in and making sure they feel like they have a chance and be comfortable. That is exactly what is transferring over to Carson Wentz, just in a different aspect, but still giving him that fair share of chances and making sure that he is going to be comfortable within this offense. And then he says, I think the experience of a guy that was drafted high, had a lot of success throughout his career, that bodes well for JJ and Max in that room as well. Talks about how confident he is in that quarterback room and how happy and how comfortable he is with it and how excited he is to see how they grow throughout the year. And having Carson Wentz in there, yeah, he's probably not going to get a lot of playing time, but having a guy in there for JJ McCarthy, for Max Brosmer, is huge, because this is a guy that at the expense of the Vikings has been there and done that and is an MVP runner-up and has a Super Bowl ring. And yes, he didn't play in those Super Bowls, but the reason why the Eagles were in that Super Bowl was because of him getting them to a great spot within the regular season, and Nick Foles took the rest from there and ruined our dreams in the process. So now he's coming back over to Minnesota and having an impact within this team where he can mentor JJ McCarthy perfectly. Where Carson Wentz was drafted high, JJ McCarthy was drafted high. They both come from Midwest schools. They both have that blue-collar Midwest mentality to their game, and now it's a matter of making sure that they can gel and it can transfer over to on-the-field productivity. But overall, Kevin O'Connell being very excited. I think within this offseason, they thought they had their quarterback to a Sam Howell. Obviously, didn't work out. They found a new quarterback to potential candidate in Max Brosmer, but they wanted more insurance, so they go out and get a veteran like Carson Wentz, who a few weeks ago or a few months ago when free agency first started, we were talking about different quarterbacks that they could bring in, or even when the Aaron Rodgers stuff was starting to happen and the buzz was around the Vikings. Kirk and I talked about different backup quarterback options we'd like to see in Minnesota. Drew Lock was one that we threw out, but Carson Wentz was also one that we were both pretty confident would be a really solid quarterback too on this team. But what did you guys think of Kevin O'Connell's comments on bringing in Carson Wentz? And do you think he is the perfect backup for JJ McCarthy in this scenario? Let us know what you guys have to say down in the comments below. That's going to take us into our second topic, which is Carson Wentz's media day. So Carson Wentz, in a very surprise media day appearance, a lot of the two quarterbacks spoke yesterday, including Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen video is going to be coming out later on tonight, so stay tuned for that one. But on the Carson Wentz side of things, it was a great press conference. It was almost a different Carson Wentz than when it was in Philly, where we all hated him. But he says it's exciting to come to a place that I had a lot of respect for since I've been in the NFL, but I also grew up cheering for the Vikings, so that is kind of surreal in that sense, but a lot of excitement for me and my family. And once I heard that, that was when I was like, all right, all the hate that I had for you in Philly, I take it back. Even if you weren't the one that ruined our Super Bowl dreams, it's still hate by proxy. But now you're on our team and you grew up loving our team. Gotta love that. And especially when he was talking about how he was a fan during the Brett Favre era. So he was a fan during the time of Asante Shenko, Adrian Peterson, Brett Favre, Percy Harvin, Sidney Rice, Steve Hutchinson, the Williams Wall, Jared Allen, all those guys, Ben Lieber, and as well as Chad Greenway. Those guys were absolute monsters. And it was awesome to see that he was a fan of them around the same time that I had become a diehard fan as well. I'd always been a fan since I was a little kid, much like every other Vikings fan. And in the era of Randy Moss, Chris Carter, because I was born in 98. So that was my earliest football memories were watching those guys and Dante Culpepper doing their thing. But when I've really started to learn the game of football and really appreciate the game for what it was and start to learn the ins and outs, that was around that Brett Favre, Adrian Peterson, Percy Harvin era, and it was so beautiful to watch. Ended in a lot of heartbreak, but still brought a lot of good football with it. And touching on his QB role too, because he was asked about it, he says, I think it's just willingness to put the team first. Everybody who steps in that locker room, that's supposed to be the mindset. And I feel like in my brief time here, that seems to be the general consensus, but just that willingness to serve. But however that looks, there's a lot of pressures both on and off the field. So I'm just trying to help in any way I can. And in ways that he said that you can help, just staying after practice, being in the film room a bit longer, working out, helping guys on cuts, helping guys on just little things with their throws. Anything that he can do to help, he is willing to do. He understands his role. And yeah, it comes with a lot of time and experience and just some humbleness with him having to go from that injury that really ruined a lot of his career trajectory and then going into a backup role where he didn't ultimately want to be in a backup role, but now he's grown to accept that role. And if he has a chance to go in there and play and start, God forbid an injury happens, JJ McCarthy, I feel like he is going to be ready to rise to that occasion for the first time in a while that we have seen a different kind of Carson Wentz. I know the one we got in Kansas City and those nothing games in the end of the seasons, those were kind of a little bit one-offs. They weren't really playing a lot of big guys in that too. So I get understanding him not having the greatest showing there. But if he's on this offense with a quarterback whisperer like Kevin O'Connell and he has to have that opportunity, I feel really comfortable with him as a quarterback number 2. And talking on JJ McCarthy as well, he said he seems like a great kid, had a lot of respect from afar and what he did in college. Heartbreaking what happened to him last year, but seems like a guy that's going to come in and work hard. And I'm excited to help him. He's excited about how to establish this relationship and this dynamic of how this season is going to go, what time they want to show up every morning and things like that, having a regimented schedule routine, and then hopping into the real necessities of when the real work begins, where Carson Wentz can do his job as a veteran mentor backup quarterback. And that's exactly what he's going to be on this team. And I can't wait to see how it helps with JJ McCarthy's development, because this quarterback room is not just any quarterback room right now, because we have so many layers of connectivity. And even last year, because of one major element, and this is something that I feel like is very overlooked even by us a lot of times, and that is Josh McCown. Josh McCown has been a mainstay in the NFL, it seems like, for 20 years, whether as a backup quarterback, a starting quarterback, a quarterback's coach, or just getting offensive coordinator opportunities with other teams, but staying with the Vikings, thankfully, where last year he had Sam Darnold to work with, where they were played together in New York, and now he has Carson Wentz there, where they played together in Philadelphia. And talking on that, he says, I've been in his office every day grilling him, his mindset, his philosophy, his demeanor, and understanding of the quarterback position. He truly understands the position as good as anybody, truthfully. And this is coming from a guy who had so much experience in the NFL. When you look at Josh McCown's career, and you look at a lot of the quarterbacks that weren't major all-stars like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, or that super long tenure, those legendary quarterbacks, when you look at guys like Josh McCown and Ryan Fitzpatrick, those are the guys that have so much tenure to them, but they've been around so many different systems. With guys like Brady and Rivers, yeah, obviously those guys are geniuses in the game of football, but they know the one system that they played in. Brady, he played in 2 systems. Peyton played in 2, obviously. But for a lot of the other guys, they stayed in one system and knew that one system. Josh McCown, unfortunately, had to go through a revolving door of a lot of different systems, a lot of different teams, a lot of different cultures, a lot of different ways that he saw how to run a team and how not to run a team in the locker room and as a player and as a coach. And now he's brought all of that wisdom to the Minnesota Vikings, which is perfect. And that is something that I think is going to be very overlooked from the offseason that going into this season. Last year, there was a lot of buzz around Josh McCown where he could have left the Vikings as an offensive coordinator, but he got a lot of credit for what he was doing with Sam Darnold along with Kevin O'Connell. And now with this season, if you have almost like 3 generations, it seems weird saying this, but it's almost like when you see a family photo of a grandpa, a father, and his son. And that's almost what we're seeing here with Josh McCown, Carson Wentz, and JJ McCarthy. It's going to be cool to see this season and see how it all plays out. But let us know what you guys have to say about that down in the comments as well. It's going to be a great season. Can't wait to bring you guys lots of great Vikings content. But for now, I've been your host, Griffin. That's going to do it for this episode of Vikings Digest. Take care.